On the night of June 5, 1944, the fate of Europe rested on a single gamble, as thousands of Allied soldiers prepared to cross the English Channel in the largest amphibious invasion in history, knowing that success or failure could shape the entire course of World War II. The beaches of Normandy would become a crucible where the ideals of freedom clashed with tyranny, and the outcome of this gamble would determine whether Nazi Germany's iron grip over Europe could finally be broken. The world waited in suspense because never before had such an operation been attempted at this scale. And never before had the free nations of the world placed so much trust in one man to lead them into the storm. Across the Atlantic, families knew that their sons, brothers, and fathers were about to embark on a mission where countless might not return. Yet all understood that the sacrifice was for the survival of liberty itself. D-Day was not only a military operation, it was a gamble of human courage, weather, timing, and leadership, with the weight of civilization pressing on the shoulders of General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Dwight D. Eisenhower, a relatively unknown officer before the war, now carried the hopes of millions, balancing the egos of powerful Allied leaders while uniting them under one strategy to defeat Hitler's war machine. His leadership was not built on charisma alone, but on a steady ability to listen, mediate disputes, and focus on the mission at hand, ensuring that Allied unity would not fracture under the strain of war. Before D-Day, Eisenhower personally visited paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division, speaking with them as equals, instilling confidence that the Supreme Commander would share in their risks and burdens. What made Eisenhower remarkable was his willingness to accept full responsibility, even drafting a message in advance to be read if the invasion failed, a letter in which he would bear the blame entirely on his own shoulders. At that moment, Eisenhower was not only a general, but also a symbol of democratic accountability, showing the world that true leadership is measured not by victory alone, but by readiness to accept the cost of failure. The planning of Operation Overlord involved the coordination of land, sea, and air forces on a scale never attempted before. With over 156,000 troops, 7,000 ships, and 11,000 aircraft prepared to strike the Normandy coast. Meticulous deception campaigns, codenamed Operation Fortitude, misled the Germans into believing the invasion would come at Calais, buying the Allies precious time and dispersing enemy defenses away from the true landing site. Weather became a decisive factor, with meteorologists warning that high seas and storms could doom the operation, forcing Eisenhower to delay the attack before finally seizing a narrow window of opportunity. Engineers, logisticians, and planners built artificial harbors called mulberries and pipelines under the sea, ensuring the Allies could sustain their armies once they landed, turning Normandy into a lifeline of supplies. Every detail, from code words used by paratroopers to the tides and moonlight, was considered, because in an operation of such scale, even the smallest miscalculation could cost thousands of lives. The gamble lay not only in the scale of the invasion, but in the uncertainty of its outcome, because no one knew if the beaches of Normandy would become a gateway to liberation or a graveyard of Allied hopes. If Eisenhower's forces failed to establish a foothold, the Allies risked losing the element of surprise, wasting irreplaceable resources, and perhaps giving Hitler another year to tighten his hold on Europe. Every soldier who stepped onto the landing craft knew he was part of a deadly lottery, where courage and fate would decide survival. Yet still they went forward, driven by duty and brotherhood. The Germans, entrenched with machine guns, artillery, and beach obstacles, believed the Allies would never dare assault such defenses head-on. Yet Eisenhower bet everything on the courage of ordinary men storming extraordinary odds. This was Eisenhower's ultimate gamble, trusting that discipline, coordination, and morale would overcome uncertainty, weather, and German firepower. A decision whose consequences would echo across history. At dawn on June 6, 1944, waves of Allied landing craft approached the beaches under heavy fire as German guns tore through the morning mist, and the sea itself seemed to churn with danger. American troops at Omaha Beach faced the fiercest resistance, pinned down by machine guns, artillery, and obstacles, with the first wave suffering devastating losses in a desperate struggle for survival. British and Canadian forces landed at Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches, fighting through minefields and pillboxes, gradually pushing inland despite fierce opposition, showing that the invasion was more than an American story. It was a coalition's triumph. Paratroopers dropped behind enemy lines in the darkness, securing bridges, sabotaging communications, and spreading confusion, ensuring German reinforcements could not quickly counterattack the fragile beachhead. By the end of that bloody day, over 4,000 Allied soldiers had given their lives. But the gamble had paid off. The beachheads were secured, and the foothold in France was real. D-Day marked the turning point of the Second World War in Europe, shifting momentum permanently against Hitler, and proving that the Nazi war machine could be breached through courage, planning, and sacrifice. As Allied troops pushed inland, they began liberating villages long oppressed under Nazi rule, greeted by French civilians who saw the arrival of soldiers as the rebirth of freedom itself. Hitler's armies, stretched thin on the Eastern Front, could not withstand the pressure of a second massive front, and the beginning of the end for the Third Reich was now in motion. For the Allies, D-Day was proof that multinational cooperation, when forged in trust and sacrifice, could achieve the impossible. A lesson that still resonates in today's uncertain world. The road ahead to Berlin would be long and bloody, but the storming of Normandy had broken the wall, and now the Allies would march forward until tyranny itself was crushed.
Eisenhower's gamble on D-Day became not only the pivotal moment of World War II, but also a symbol of unity, courage, and decisive leadership in the face of impossible odds. The invasion demonstrated that democracy, though fragile and costly, could summon the will and sacrifice necessary to defend itself against tyranny, leaving a legacy that still shapes global freedom today. For the soldiers who never returned, Normandy stands as sacred ground, a reminder that history is not written only in speeches and plans, but in the blood of those who dared to land under fire. Eisenhower himself would go on to become President of the United States, but it was in the days of June 1944 that his courage, humility, and resolve forever earned him a place among history's greatest leaders. Today, as we reflect on Eisenhower's D-Day gamble, we honor the ordinary men who achieved the extraordinary, and we invite you to keep their memory alive by liking this video, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing for more stories of courage, sacrifice, and history that shaped our world.